Welcome in, coming to you live from the capital city of the great state of Texas, overlooking downtown Austin and the University of Texas. It's the weekly broadcast that understands the pride and tradition of the Texas football program will never be entrusted to the timid or the weak. It's the Eyes on Texas multicast. The Longhorns are Big 12 championship bound. We are a product of the Republic of Football on Dave Campbell's Texas Football Podcast Network. We're powered by our presenting partner at Grande Equipment. I'm Aaron Hogan, morning show host at The Horn here in Austin. 25 years on the mornings here in the ATX. He is the senior writer at Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. Our friend Mike Craven. It's the multicast that keeps you on top of all things Texas football, and it's a pretty good year to be a part of Texas football, Mike Craven. You were at the game on Friday night of last week. You've been to a lot of football games in that stadium, and it was quite the electric scene. But first, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanksgiving break was insane. You know, A&M hired 2 different head coaches. Houston opened up. Baylor didn't open up. UTEP, which I know most people don't care about, but I have to, opened up. So it's a wild ride. We'll see what happens in the state. But, yeah, it's weird that the coaching carousel is this involved into football, because you look up sometimes and you go, oh, yeah, there's football games on Saturday I also have to worry about.
Yeah. Well, we heard from Sark this week. Coach Steve Sarkisian, Longhorns headed to the Big 12 championship game. He got to sit and watch football all day Saturday. He said, I was exhausted by the end of it, which is interesting. But you are the senior writer for Dave Campbell's Texas Football. So when we say Eyes on Texas football, we cover the Longhorns, but you cover the state. So we will certainly dive into the Texas A&M situation. Longhorns are going to play Texas A&M next year. We now know the date of that game, which we'll talk about coming up. A couple of other SEC dates announced for the Longhorns this week. Also, the college football playoff rankings are out. But most importantly, the Longhorns have a big game, huge game, with Oklahoma State coming up in the Big 12 championship game and a chance to secure their 4th Big 12 championship in 27 years as a program. That's not enough, but at least you would bookend it and put a 4th on the board. Their 7th trip to the title game. We will preview the Oklahoma State contest. We'll talk about this Texas team and how they turned the fates from 5-7 to 8-5 to now 11-1 and a chance to be 12-1 and maybe a trip to the college football playoff if things fall their way. We'll break all that down on the multicast that you can also follow on Twitter at Eyes on Texas FB. You can also find it on Instagram on the Eyes on Texas Pod, at Eyes on Texas Pod, and on Facebook at Eyes on Texas Podcast. We call it a multicast because you can find it on YouTube, both on the Horn FM in Austin YouTube channel and on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football YouTube channel. Robust places there. Also on iTunes and Spotify if you choose to just listen to the multicast. Before we start, let's thank our presenting partner at Grande Equipment, our great friend Wes Murray and his team. They have been behind us the entire way, starting this thing up way back in March. They understand your reputation is all you have when it comes to a project, so you need heavy equipment for a large or a small project. All that matters is getting it done on time. That's why Grande partners with you on every project. They've operated this way for 31 years. Not about the equipment, it's about your partnership and making sure you get to the finish line on time, on budget. That's why they're in the relationship business. When you need that equipment, they get you what you want when you want, no hassles. It'll be there without uncertainty and job site ready. And they're an independent equipment manufacturer, so they get anything you want. Caterpillar, John Deere, Komatsu, Volvo, and more heavy equipment, sales and rentals. They also have a new renewable energy sector that's growing like crazy. Solar projects all over the state, all over the country. Pile driver applications is what they specialize in, both new and used equipment capable of renting statewide and nationally. Grande, your international independent dealer. Find them online at grandeequipment.com. It's Grande Equipment. They don't overpromise, they overdeliver, and they deliver the Eyes on Texas multicast. We break it into 4 quarters each episode, just like a football game. As we said, we'll get into this Texas team, the growth, the team culture, how they've gone from where they were to where they are. We'll also get to the Oklahoma State preview in a big way, preview what they're dealing with these Cowboys. Our 4th quarter will be robust as well with the 4 big questions around college football. There are plenty: Texas recruiting, transfer portal opening, and as you said, Mike, the coaching carousel in the great state is spinning at full speed right now. But let's start with the first quarter and get this thing going. It is closed on time every time by the Texas Mortgage Guy, Carlos Carrion. Great guy. We'll tell you about him coming up, thetexasmortgageguy.com. But, Mike, your recap of the Texas Tech game, then we'll hear from Sark on the 57-7 thrashing. I think there are a couple of storylines here, several actually. Domination against a bowl-eligible 6-win Tech team that had won 3 in a row, who they made look pretty feeble. Also, the crowd, the electricity in the building, what we saw Friday night. Talked to a lot of folks. You were on our radio show this week. It's as good as it gets as far as bringing everything together. A good team with quite the scene, Vivo Boulevard and the concerts and then Arch Manning got to play in the football game, which anybody who was planning to leave in the fourth quarter when it was a blowout decided, oh, wait, let me watch this young guy play. So there was a lot to take in over a afternoon into the evening of Black Friday.
I've been going to Texas football games since I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I'm closer to 40 than I'd like to admit on air on this podcast. Definitely a top 5 viewing experience. Like, I had gone to the Kansas game earlier, but that was a day game, so I hadn't gotten the full LED lights, kind of drone experience. After A&M, Texas has struggled on this Black Friday football game to build an atmosphere. A lot of the students are gone. Everybody's visiting their family. It's a late arriving crowd. It sometimes isn't loud. That was not the case on Friday night. Like, they were rocking, they were rolling. They showed the Your Mark thing there at the end. They got the crowd going again. And I told you this on your radio show, a peek behind the curtain. When a blowout is going on like that in the second half, all of us writers are writing our stories. We're leaving a little bit of blank spaces to fill in quotes, but we can get home earlier on those blowouts. And then all of a sudden, the crowd started going crazy for no real reason, right? And we all look back up, and Arch Manning is there, and so we all had to stop writing our stories, and we just kind of watched everything unfold. And so I would imagine that's as perfect of a script as Del Conte and Sarkisian could have wanted, right? You embarrass Texas Tech at home, your final Big 12 game, Your Mark's there, the crowd's rocking, it's at night. It was a good night for the Longhorns for sure. It
was, and it's one of those things, having covered this program as long as I have, as long as you have, it was really, I'm sure, very gratifying for the whole program. Because I remember when Del Conte came in and he started doing the Vivo Boulevard thing, and there were a lot of Longhorn fans, old school ones for sure, like, why are you doing this? We suck. We're not any good. Like, what are we having this Vivo Boulevard for? Well, don't we win some football games, and then we can get all new lockers and we can, have a party, which I understood. But at the same time, Del Conte was on our radio show many times and said, that's not my job. My job is to create an atmosphere. That's what we do. We're trying to create a game day experience that celebrates Texas football, celebrates Austin, highlights what we do. And Sark's job is to build the football team. And so here we go on this Friday night where it just feels like it all came together on one night. Like, wow, that was quite the scene. And the game wasn't even that good. I mean, Texas Tech was not a match. Now, who knows where it goes from here? Texas has a chance to win the Big 12. But for that night, the vision that CDC had, the vision that Sark had to build the roster, build the team, CDC and Drew Martin over there building the game ops, it came together in a pretty special way in the final game ever at DKR as a Big 12 conference member.
Yeah, and kind of your trial run of what you're going to look like as an SEC member.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an SEC crowd, right? And that stereotype of what an SEC crowd is, that's what was happening that night. They were loud, even when it was a 40-point blowout football game. They stayed in the student section was full when Arch Manning was there. I mean, like, when I was in college, like that wasn't even close to happening, right? Like, everybody's gone in the third quarter. And so I remember Mac Brown getting to Texas and doing the come early, be loud, stay late as a plea. Please come. Please come early. Please be loud. Please stay late. You don't have to beg them to do that anymore. That's on Del Conte, and by a further extent, that's on Sarkisian for building a good football team.
And I think you can blame Brett Yormark a little bit and Texas Tech. There was some venom in that.
Right. And those things
that's
good.
Great.
That's what we've been talking about all week, like how that's a good thing. Like, lean into that part of football because it adds stakes to it, right? Like, it adds more juice to the game. There was a lot there. The crowd erupted when the Your Mark thing happened. It was awesome. It was like, that's what college football is supposed to be.
And no matter what Steve Sarkisian, because he's a diplomat these days, he'll take the high ground on this stuff. But, there were several T-shirts seen worn by Texas players that FAFO, the F around and find out, right? Sark embraced that, leaned into it. The strength conditioning coach did. FAFO, which is so good for the Texas program where they are. Because there was we talked about a lot, there's a time where what Joey McGuire said about they're soft and they'll break, what a lot of coaches have said, that was true. It's not true anymore. And the fact that it's not true and they take it personal. Like, don't insult our culture. F around and find out. We'll show you. Back-to-back weeks against Iowa State and Texas Tech. Sark can say what he wants. The players were bought in to backing up that culture and playing a really good football game. And obviously now they have to turn their attention to Oklahoma State, and I think they have plenty of reason to be, F around and find out on that one too, because Oklahoma State beat them last year in Stillwater, and Mike Gundy's won 7 of the last 10 against Texas, and there's something to prove and a championship to be won. Let's hear from Sark real quick on the recap. We've given you our recap of a 57-7 destruction of Texas Tech here on the Eyes on Texas multicast. Let's hear Sark on what he thought after watching the tape on Saturday?
Man, I thought our defense and special teams were really just terrific Friday night. We really controlled the field position in the game. Anytime you can, create 3 turnovers, have a turnover on downs, block a punt, return a kickoff for a touchdown, and create explosive returns in the punt return game, as well as when you punt the ball to pin them down deep in their own end twice. That's controlling the field position in the game. And quite frankly, the one drive that they did have for the touchdown was when they got the one kick return that got out across the 50. They got the short field and scored. So we see the value in field position that way. So that was huge. I thought the run game was fantastic the other night. Having our third rusher this year go for over 100 yards in Jaden Blue, I think just continues to show the depth in that running back room. And I thought we saw, again, more glimpses of Savion Red, as well as, a young Trey Wisner. He's been doing great things for us on special teams, but to see him run the ball was huge. And so, again, I think our versatility showed up as a team. Friday night, we can win games a lot of different ways, and we're very complimentary of each side of the ball, and special teams of working well together. And I think that's one thing about our team that I'm excited about, that I continue to praise us for, is the fact that we can win games a lot of different ways, and our style of play can travel because whatever's needed for that game, we're more than capable of playing that style of game and being effective.
All right, very effective win for Texas, all phases. And Mike, that's hard to find covering a long time. That's as good a special teams performance as I've ever seen from a Texas football team. There were some Mac Brown teams that would do that, where the special teams were special. You return a kick for a touchdown, you block a punt, you kick 5 for 5 on field goals. Explosive returns. Texas over 300 yards now in punt return numbers this year. This is when you get depth, and you have a special teams coach like Jeff Banks and Joe D. Camillus coming in as a consultant. You can win football games with that phase, and the word versatility Sark's used all year. This team can beat you a lot of ways.
We've done this podcast for probably 7 or 8 months, and we've wondered what it would look like if Texas did a complete 3-phase of the football game, 4-quarter performance. And we saw what it looks like if Texas is able to do that. Now, we'll talk about the college football playoff rankings in a little bit. Maybe had they done that a little bit more throughout the year, they'd be ahead of a couple of the one-loss teams in front of them. But they are one of the best teams in the country, and styles make fights. We also talked about that. And Texas Tech was a bad matchup for Texas, and they physically beat up the Red. And that's what you used to worry about Texas. Like, Texas always had the skill to beat any team in the Big 12, but would they physically hold up against a team that was going to punch them in the mouth? They can't get bullied anymore. They're the bullies now, and that's how it should have always been with the way that they're able to recruit offensive and defensive linemen.
We'll talk coming up in our third quarter about Tavondre Sweat, who today was announced as one of the 3 finalists for the Outland Trophy. He's got a real good chance to win that award the way he's played this year. He and Byron Murphy together, complete game record. Sark was asked about those two's impact, and they patrol the field. They patrol the locker room. Those dudes are dudes. But you mentioned the college football playoff rankings. We record this on a Tuesday night. The rankings are out, and Texas remains 7. There was a lot of talk in and around Austin. Would the 57-7 throttling push them ahead of Oregon? Because now Texas Tech's a common opponent for Texas and Oregon. Tech beat them by 8 points, but it was closer than that. It was 31-30 late in that game, and a fumble return for a touchdown made it the 8-point spread. Texas won 57-7. No. But still, the College Football Playoff Committee leaving Oregon at 5. Ohio State is actually still ahead of Texas, and I know at number 6, I know Texas fans will be frustrated by that, but I still contend that if Texas wins the Big 12 championship game while Ohio State doesn't play, that'll change. That data point will flip Texas ahead. But the question becomes Oregon, Washington. Number 1 is Georgia. Number 2 is Michigan. Washington is 3. Florida State is 4, with Oregon 5. There still is I don't know what the percentage of it is, Mike, but there is a chance to make the Final Four if you win the game. First and foremost, you need Florida State to lose.
Yes.
You need Florida State to lose to Louisville, where they're a 2 and 2.5 point favorite with a backup quarterback, which is doable. Louisville's a 10-2 football team. They'll play in Charlotte. If they lose, that opens a spot, and Texas has a really great claim to that spot. But point of fact, if for the first time ever we have 4 undefeated Power 5 conference champions with Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Florida State, then there's no way in.
Yeah, and it feels like the committee has told us this whole time that the Pac-12 champion is getting in. Like, it feels like the winner of Oregon-Washington. Like, Oregon's not going to move down by beating Washington, right? And Texas isn't going to jump Oregon by beating Oklahoma State while Oregon beats Washington. So
Correct.
It feels like the Pac-12 champion is in. I believe the SEC champion is in. I don't see a way in that Alabama beats Georgia and doesn't get into the college football playoff. Obviously, if Georgia wins, that they're in the playoff. The Big Ten champions, right? Michigan's going to get in. I don't believe in Iowa enough to win that game, right? So the Big Ten champion is going to get in. So to me, the only way Texas can get into this thing is if Florida State stubs their toe or looks so bad in the process of winning that the college football playoff brings out the whole, it was never the 4 most deserving teams, it's the 4 best teams, because that is what it is written as. It's never been used that way. It is always the 4 most deserving teams. But if Florida State wins by 1 and it's a 12-10 football game or something, I do think that there is a greater than 0 chance that the committee goes, well, Texas is healthy, we're putting the Longhorns in over a hurt Florida State. But it does feel like Louisville is Texas's best chance.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I don't think it'll happen, but it's not beyond the realm that they say, well, Texas right now is a better team.
Yeah.
And even, people talk about pressure from the TV networks.
Because it's a TV show.
TV network would rather see Texas healthy than backup quarterback at Florida State get smashed by Georgia or Michigan, right? Texas-Michigan would be a much sexier matchup, or Texas-Georgia, much sexier matchup. And by the way, Texas plays both Georgia and Michigan next year. So, and they could, if they were to make the Final Four, they could see them here come January 1st, which would be pretty compelling, to say the least. I would also say that if Alabama were to beat Georgia, I think there's one spot for the SEC this year. I don't think Georgia gets in if they lose.
I agree. But
And
Alabama would.
Alabama would for sure.
Yeah.
The SEC champion would be in. The Pac-12 champion's in. Michigan's in as they smashed Iowa. And so, again, if Alabama were to win, that would knock Georgia behind Texas, in my opinion. It'd be very close, but the deciding point would be Texas's 10-point win in Tuscaloosa. That Alabama just beat Georgia, Texas beat Alabama, Texas is in. Point of fact. And the fact that Oklahoma put 69 points on TCU in that closer, that's a 10-2 team that's pretty damn good. Texas's only loss is a neutral site game to a rival in the last seconds, right? So that's a pretty good resume.
I do think also I may be the only non-Texas Tech employee to see the Texas Tech Oregon and the Texas Tech.
Yeah, you were at both games live.
I was there. Yeah, I was there week 2 in Lubbock. That was the book trip tour to Lubbock. One team was infinitely better against Oregon than the other. But, yeah, one was week 2 and one was week 13. So I understand how that can't be an exact science there.
But it has to count
I get
for something.
frustrated with the eye test stuff because, it's not a bunch of football coaches in their eye test. It's a bunch of dorks like me in their eye test. And, what is that? The computer, by the way, they still do, BCS rankings.
Jeff Sagarin and stuff.
Yeah, Oregon would be ahead of Texas, even the BCS.
Well, and that would be my plea to Texas fans. Oregon's pretty damn good.
Yeah, Oregon's not the problem. Florida State is.
Because I can look at it as an objective football fan and say Oregon, Bo Nix is better than Quinn Ewers. Their defense probably right with Texas. They're dynamic. I mean, they're really damn good. And if they were playing tomorrow on a neutral site, I'd pick Oregon to win the game. Point of fact.
That'd be a fun one.
It would be a great game. I just think Texas's inability to cover in-breaking routes and secondary things would be exposed.
Yeah.
But I'd love to be at the game. I'd love to see the games because Texas isn't that far behind anybody. And that's where college football is right now, and that's why this is either going to be infuriating or a lot of fun for Texas fans. First and foremost, though, you got to beat Oklahoma State. Coming back, we will preview, or coming up in our second and third quarter, we'll talk about this Texas team itself. We'll also talk about the matchup with Oak State, the Texas coaching carousel around the great state. But let me ask you real quick before we go and wrap up our first quarter, Mike. The SEC announced, or at least Chris Lowe at ESPN put out, the SEC is going to announce their full 2024 schedule next month. Chris Lowe got an advance copy or something. He works for ESPN. They're going to broadcast all the SEC games. That makes sense. And Texas is going to play, we now know, Georgia on October the 19th here, the week after Oklahoma. Yeah. How about the month of October here in Austin with 2 ACL weekends, a Texas OU weekend, Georgia, Texas, which at that point Georgia could be a 3-time national champion by then, and F1 weekend. Pretty good. And Halloween.
I think F1 in F1 in Georgia are the same weekend.
Yes.
So book your hotel now.
Book your hotel now. Maybe I'll rent my house.
Yeah.
I'll be renting my house.
Yeah, I got a room. I'll tell you the price off air, but I got one.
Yeah, I'll put it up there. I'm renting my whole house. I will leave. I'll find somewhere. I'll go stay at Nolan's house.
That's fair. That's a good point.
But yes, so that's been announced. And more importantly, they're going to play not more importantly, but as important, they're going to play at Arkansas November 16th, middle of the month of September or November. And we now know that the first Texas A&M game in 12 years will be November 30th, 2 days after Thanksgiving at College Station.
Yeah, it's such a bummer.
You want it on Thanksgiving?
It should be on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
It should be on Thanksgiving. It gets me out of family stuff. Like, it should be on Thanksgiving.
You don't want to be turkey.
No. I mean, I want to have 2 hours with my family and then have a absolutely surefire out that my mom can't get mad at me for leaving for, right? It can't just be to play video games or to go home, right? like I can do that, but she gets upset about it. If, like, Texas and A&M were playing, then, like, what can she say? My grandfather used that excuse for, like, 40 years, and I'm upset that I'm not allowed to use it.
By the way, A&M wanted to keep that LSU game around Thanksgiving. That's going to be pushed to September.
Yeah.
September. I also noticed today when I saw the SEC announcements, the games that were trickled out, Alabama's got a hell of a schedule next year for Nick Saban. They're playing Texas they're playing Oklahoma, they're playing Tennessee, Georgia, and they play at LSU. All in the conference schedule. Pretty good for the SEC, and that's what ESPN's paying $1 billion for, or multi-billion dollars to have games just like that. So that's as you said, get your hotel room now for October 19th for the Georgia game if you're coming in from out of town. Get ready for November 20th. Now, 29th, I still think there's a chance, or 30th. I still think there's a chance they can move it back to the 29th. Big picture.
Black Friday would be better than the Saturday. It needs to be its own showcase.
Agreed.
That's the whole point, is that you can't have it when Ohio State and Michigan are playing.
Nope.
And that's what they play that Saturday at 11 a.m. every single time after Thanksgiving. And so it needs some kind of showcase, and if that can't be Thanksgiving, because the NFL's come and taken Thanksgiving in Texas and Texas A&M's absence, right?
Yes.
Like, it's not the same landscape.
They do the triple header now.
Yeah, so like that's the NFL days. They run the world. College football is going to have to adjust. Black Friday, it's got to be that. It's got to be the night Black Friday game.
Agreed. And that's still a doable thing. And ESPN would carry it, and it would be really cool to have that game on Friday night in College Station, just like we had Texas Tech last Friday night. All right, first quarter closed on time by our man Carlos Carrion, the Texas Mortgage Guy, online at thetexasmortgageguy.com. We've told about him for every episode. He was our first partner with us, an expert in the field, but lifetime Austinite, which makes sense, right? He loves Longhorns, loves talking Texas football, baseball, basketball, but he also likes to help you as your guide, help solve problems and strategize a very important decision in your life, and that's buying a new house, a mortgage, or a refi down the road. He's a tremendous, tremendous guy. Listens to the podcast religiously, Longhorn fan, so kind of works to work with like-minded people you can talk with, but also you feel like you get along, you can trust them immediately, and that's what Carlos is all about. Find him at thetexasmortgageguy.com. Nearly a decade in the mortgage industry. He's also on social media, Facebook. Search Carlos Carrion, Carreon, and on Twitter at Carlos Carrion36. Great guy, I promise you. Anything you might have. It's still a good time to buy a house in Austin, Texas, because the property values are rising like crazy. You can always go back and refi that house down the road when the rates come back down, which they will. But get in now with Carlos Carrion, the TexasMortgageGuy.com. All right, second quarter, delivered by the Good Times and Incredible Scratch Comfort Food at Hayes City Store and Ice House in Driftwood, Texas. And our second quarter begins with Steve Sarkisian talking about being in this position in year 3. This was a 5-7 team, an 8-5 team a year ago that lost a lot of games they should have won. And now here they are in year 3, 11-1, chance to win the Big 12 championship. Sark was asked about being here right now. It was the vision, but here you are.
I mean, it's awesome. One thing I talked to the team about today, actually on that point, was we didn't come this far just to come this far. And there's more out there for us to accomplish. And that was a great celebration Friday night, but that wasn't the end, right? That was just another checkpoint in the journey. And so, it's awesome. And to think about the rare air, I'm in DKR every day. My office looks right into DKR. And to think in the last 27 years, there's only been 3 conference championships. And we're playing for one on Saturday where we can put our year up in that stadium forever. That means a lot, That's something that we don't take lightly. Like, that's a big deal. And so we're fortunate that we've stayed healthy enough to get ourselves to this point. We're fortunate that we have the depth to withstand an injury when it comes up. But in the end, like, to be in this discussion and to be playing for a conference championship, that's why I came here. Not every school do you really get these opportunities, and I feel like these are one of the places where you can. But this doesn't have to be a one-time thing. This isn't, hey, this year we did it and I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. If we can do it right, I don't want to say it's routine, but hopefully it's a little bit more consistent where we are in these discussions, where we are competing for conference championships, that we have the pieces in place, not only from a roster management standpoint, but also a facility standpoint, a coaching staff standpoint, a support standpoint from administration, to where this is what Texas football is. And so it took a lot of hard work to get to this point. And so I try not to forget my first season here. I try not to forget some of the tough games, the tough locker room speeches, the tough press conferences, because that's a friendly reminder of how far we've come, and we should be proud of that. We should be proud of the work that we've put in to get ourselves to this point.
I was laughing because Kim Kardashian, there's a famous GIF out there where Kim Kardashian says that quote, like, we didn't come that far to come this far. And the reporter goes, what does that mean? And she goes, oh, I don't know. I just read it somewhere. And so every time I hear that quote, I think about that.
Sark's a SoCal guy,
That's so great.
Well, he is very genuine about where they are, and it has been his vision. But yes, did he steal a Kardashian quote?
No, I think
she stole it from somebody else.
Yeah, she didn't even know what it means. I just thought every time I hear that sentence, that's what I think of. When I was at the A&M press conference, I don't even know what day that was. Yesterday, Monday afternoon, Mike Elko said something that I thought was pretty clever and was pretty smart. It's not an elevator, right? There's not a button you push to go reach the top floor. Like, there's stairs, and you have to take those stairs every single day when nobody's looking, when people are looking, and you have to climb them, and you have to keep climbing them. And that's what Texas has done, right? I mean, it wasn't easy. There was adversity. They lost some guys along the way that probably ended up being addition by subtraction, and here they are with everything in front of them that they talked about all offseason that they wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, I like that. It's step by step. We heard Sark last week talk about the culture, and that's not a sign in your building or a T-shirt you wear. It's every day. It's very deliberate. It's very intentional, and it spreads through your whole team, just like cancer spreads through your whole team. If you get some bad seeds and some guys who aren't pulling the same direction, it can rip the other way too. And I think that's what Texas A&M's dealing with. We'll talk about that coming up in our fourth quarter with the Mike Elko hire. But let's hear from a couple of the players here on this, because Quinn Ewers, this is a Big 12 opportunity. Quinn Ewers is the quarterback. And I know people, it's amazing around here. You and I have done this a long time. People are already talking about, is Arch Manning going to be the quarterback next year? I'm like, you're really going to bench a quarterback who won you your first Big 12 championship since Colt McCoy? Like, really? He's going to sit? Yeah, I guess. Finicky to say the least. But here is Quinn Ewers talking about the opportunity they have on Saturday to win a trophy.
I mean, anytime you're up for whether it's a conference championship or any kind of championship, it's just a blessing, and it's just cool to be a part of a team like this that has an opportunity to go, make their mark on this program and put their year up in DKR, and it's always going to be a special moment that we're all going to be able to live with for the rest of our lives.
Right, there's Quinn Ewers. What about the culture and the team? We mentioned that it's climbing stairs and a brick at a time or a day at a time, whatever cliche you want. Let's hear from Jalen Ford, one of the team leaders, talking about a guy who was here, recruited by Tom Herman's staff, came in, was here for some of the bad times, and coaching change and positional coach changes, and now a chance to go 12-1, win a Big 12 championship. Here's Jalen Ford, pretty thoughtful on what he's seen in his time on the 40 acres.
Why has it worked? The players bought in. I think when Sark got here, everyone, it was hard for everyone to buy in because, when he got here, respectively, that wasn't the guy that recruited all these players, And so for the ones that stuck through and believed in Sark and what he had to preach and what he had to, what he had in line or in store for everyone. And then he got some of the guys that he wanted to hear, and he looked at the older guys to be his leaders, even though those aren't the guys he recruited, like myself or Jordan, Sweat, Jade, all those guys that walked that field from senior night. We kind of had to be the leaders, and we kind of had to believe in Sark, and we kind of pushed the other guys to, have a standard or create a new standard here. And I think everyone just bought into it, and you look up and here you are, 11-1. So it's a lot of clawing and digging, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but it was all worth it.
Mike Craven, pretty good stuff right there from a guy who's going to be off to the NFL, might win some awards here at the end of his career, and has been a really, really pivotal player. Yeah, he just reminds me so much of Roshan Johnson from last year, a guy that just plays the part every single day.
Yeah, I mean, the coaching staff can't be all of the leaders. Like, you need leadership. And when your best players are bought into in that way, like, the younger guys have no choice but to keep up. And so Texas is starting to get back to that point where it filters down. The older guys are able to kind of care for the younger guys and show them the way, and then the younger guys have some time to grow into it. Texas has struggled the last 10-plus years because those young guys have just been thrusted into being the stars and the leaders, and they don't know how to do it, and they lose in the fourth quarter and they fall apart. They finally have that backbone and that structure, and it's showing on the football field.
Character, and those things that you work on daily, and camaraderie and playing for one another, that shows up in pivotal moments, and we've seen it all year for Texas. That's when that comes to bear, when you need a big stop or you need a big play or whatever it might be, and they found so many ways to do that this year. It just seeps through, and it's a great example, and I think it's something that will live on for the program because every player that's new to the program or whatever has seen it. Like, oh, okay, that's how you do it. That's what it's going to take to continue this into the Southeastern Conference. All right, that's our second quarter, delivered by the incredible Scratch Food and Amazing Times at Hayes City Store and Ice House in Driftwood, Texas. Also, our friends at Taste on Main. My buddy Travis Tyndall and his wife Tamra own both restaurants. One is in Driftwood, one is in downtown Buda. They're both ready to serve you and your family every day of the week. Both of the total package. Different vibes. Hayes City Store, of course, with the big canopy of oak trees, the outdoor ice house and sports watching and 53 beers on tap, live music 6 nights a week, and that incredible Scratch Comfort food. Indoor, outdoor, there's never a bad time for big groups and just you and the wife or whoever and your buddies out at Hayes City Store. Taste on Main, their new location is in Buda, right on downtown Main Street. And it's a little upper end. You got an anniversary, a birthday, celebration. Get on out there. They got great steaks and seafood, oyster bar, the raw bar, great drink menu. Just an incredible place. And they bring you the Eyes on Texas multicast each and every week. Get on out there. Find the menus online at HayesCityStoreTX.com. That's HayesCityStoreTX.com or TasteOnMain.com as well. Taste on Main in downtown Buda. Hayes City Store in Driftwood. Phenomenal people. You're going to love both locations for whatever your occasion is. They're perfect for you. Halftime, delivered with just the right pressure by One Source Gas, your one-stop shop in Central Texas for all gas products. One Source Gas of Austin is your Central Texas compressed gas leader. Nolan Hogan, our digital producer. Nolan, what do we have for the NFL? We know we got dudes all over the National Football League. Bijan had a big game last week. They still don't give him the damn ball enough, but Bijan got loose a little bit for the Atlanta Falcons. What else went on Sunday and throughout the NFL Week 12?
So we had a single Longhorn playing on Thursday on Thanksgiving night in the Seattle game versus the 49ers. Quandre Diggs had 6 tackles, 4 solo, and a pass breakup. Deshaun Elliott in the Friday night game against the New York Jets had 1 solo tackle, 1 PBU. Andrew Beck matched Dalton Schultz in receptions with 1 on Sunday.
For the Texans, yeah. Come on now, Buck.
The Texans. Malcolm Roach had himself a day against Atlanta on the other side of the ball at Bijan with 6 tackles, 1 solo, and a pass deflection. Bijan Robinson on the other side of the ball, 16 carries, 91 yards with a touchdown, as well as 3 receptions for 32 yards and a touchdown. Down to our special team guys, Carolina, Deshaun Jameson is returning kicks. He had 2 kick returns for 40 yards, average of 20 yards. Devin Duvernay for the Baltimore Ravens versus Tennessee had Ravens did not play Tennessee. They played the Chargers. 1 punt return for 3 yards. Justin Tucker versus the Chargers was 2 for 3 on field goals. He missed from under 50.
Come on, Tuck.
He is now the second place holder for the completion percentage in the whole.
Oh, for 50 yards plus?
Or for his.
Oh, he came back down.
His make percentage. Now Young-Ho Koo is above him.
Young-Ho Koo from Atlanta. He plays in a dome. Give him a break.
Yeah. And then Cameron Dicker in the same game battled the Longhorn kickers. He had 1 field goal, 1 for 1. with an extra point, had 4 points in the game. Justin Tucker, the vet, doubles him up with 8.
Yeah, it does feel like, Mike Craven, that this the current Texas team we're talking about quite a lot here is going to start the pipeline of NFL players. So there's going to be a lot of guys on this Texas team that play on Sundays moving forward, and we'll cover it on the Eyes on Texas multicast. But I could think as many as 10 guys, maybe more, that could play on Sundays, including Tavondre Sweat and Jalen Ford and Jahdae Barron, who we've already heard from, Quinn Ewers eventually. The pipeline's filling back up, and that's typically when your program is up for major awards and you're playing for championships, and the NFL draft board, it has a bunch of burnt orange, tells you where your program is. And you don't do one without the other.
Yeah, it's very rare that you see a team with a bunch of draft picks in April that didn't win a lot of football games in November or December.
Yeah. Hey, One Source Gas, my buddy Richard Strever and his team, if you have a locally owned business that you're a restaurant, a dental office, veterinary clinic, and you use compressed gas or CO2 or whatever your needs are, and you're looking for a better or new CO2 compressed gas provider, visit their website at onesourcegasatx.com. That's onesourcegasatx.com. They just do it better. That's why they've grown like they have. I mean, grow kind of like talking about the Longhorns and getting better and better culturally. They've just taken over market share. They started in Austin, now they're in San Marcos, New Braunfels, up in north into Round Rock, down into San Antonio, because they deliver and they do it better. Because you need that CO2, you need that compressed gas to run your business, your dental office, your restaurant, your bar taps. Got to have it. And if there's a delay or there's a problem, it sets you back. And that's where the One Source Gas is really taken over here in Central Texas. They're the best. OneSourceGasATX.com, the website. That's OneSourceGasATX.com, or call Richard or one of his team members, 512-214-8484. That's 512-214-8484 at One Source Gas of Austin, OneSourceGasATX.com. All right, third quarter. Mike, presented by Dr. Greg Eckert and his irrefutable research-based Brain Vault technology. And let's talk Oklahoma State. 9-3, kind of a weird team. 2-2 to start the year. Looked a mess. Looked like Mike Gundy didn't have much of a clue what he was doing. He was rotating 3 quarterbacks. They lost to South Alabama at home, 34-3. And you were like, whoa, is Mike Gundy, is he ready to walk out? And then they turned around and opened conference play, lost to Iowa State. And you're Iowa State with the gambling scandal. This is not a good Iowa State or Oklahoma State team. They have a bye week. They settle on Alan Bowman as their quarterback, the one-time Texas Tech starting quarterback, and then Michigan.
Alan Bowman.
That's Alan Bowman?
Yeah, I said that Alan Bowman.
That Alan Bowman.
That's amazing.
You remember when he went from Texas Tech to Michigan. Got a graduate degree from Michigan, by the way. Now he's 23 years old. He's playing quarterback for Oak State. They also decided that in the first 3 games, Mike, when they started 1-2, or when they started the 2-2 start, first 3 games, Ollie Gordon had 19 carries in 3 games. So it was almost like Mike Gundy was trying to figure out what his team is, almost like preseason. And they came out of their bye week, and they've gone 7-1, and here they are.
Yeah, this is the most Mike Gundy team ever. I never know if a Mike Gundy team is good. I don't know if Oklahoma State still is good and they're in the Big 12 championship game. This feels a lot to me on paper like the Texas Tech game. What Oklahoma State does really well is push people around, run the football, and wear them out into the second half and then win close football games.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that against Texas. I said this last week. I'm going to sound like bro. If your game plan is to move Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy out of the way and run the football, it's not happening. Like, this is not going to be – you may do it once or twice, but it's not going to be the thing that takes you to victory. I don't think Oklahoma State has enough dudes around them to score with Texas. Unless Texas intercepts, turnovers, special teams their way into a close one, this one feels more likely to be ugly than to be close.
I don't disagree, and I'm with you. Let's hear Sark, though. He's watched the tape. And, they have strengths. Here's Sark on the strengths of this Oklahoma State team. They're sitting at 9-3, 7-1 in their last 8.
I know I can rattle off 3 really good teams in Kansas, Kansas State, and Oklahoma. Bang, 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 right in a row. And we played all 3 of those teams and didn't win all 3 of those games. And so I know the quality of opponents that they are. And so, again, I don't know the exact answer why, but I know what they're capable of, and they're capable of being a very dangerous team and one that can play at a very high level and match the opponent and the quality of the opponent. And so those wins were very impressive to me. I think the one area that jumps out to me is their linebacking core. I think is probably the best one we faced all year. They've got 3 very, very good linebackers who impact the game. They rush the quarterback extremely well. They tackle really well. They force turnovers really well. They fly around the field. Those 3 guys, Oliver, Benson, Martin, they're big-time players, and everything they do defensively kind of is structured around those 3 guys impacting the game. So very impressed by them.
All right, very impressed by them. And also Ollie Gordon from the state of Texas, Fort Worth area, South Grand Prairie High School. 4-star recruit. I mean, Texas came in late, but he's taller running back, good player, and, may win the Doak Walker Award. That's how good he is. Had 19 carries in the first 3 games, but leads the Big 12 in rushing now, one of the national leaders too, and gets better as the game goes on. Here's Sark on what he's seen on Ollie Gordon. You have to stop him if you're going to stop Oklahoma State.
In a unique way, it's kind of fitting that we're playing Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game, knowing we didn't get an opportunity to play each other in the regular season. With us leaving the Big 12 and some of the great games and the matchups that have gone on kind of over the years and historically. So for us to be able to play in the Big 12 championship game, it's kind of fitting, knowing, hey, we're going to be playing OU every year moving forward. So that part's kind of fitting. Ollie Gordon's a heck of a player, and they have done a great job offensively of leaning into him. And he really signifies who their team is. I feel like he gets stronger as the game goes on, like a lot of big physical backs do. A lot of his best runs come in the second half when teams wear down. He has, the hard yards, the tough yards in between the tackles, but yet he has the big play, explosive play ability to create those long runs. And they've got a variety of run schemes with him, and they do a heck of a job out of the pistol formation where they can get to all their runs, and a lot of them look the same. And so your defensive line, your linebackers have to do a great job of fitting those things, and then you've got to tackle. And generally with a guy like him, one guy's not enough. And so our ability to populate the ball Saturday and making sure we're fitting these runs right is going to be really critical.
All right, good stuff from Sark right there. And he has 5 touchdowns in the win over BYU, right? He was their offense. They got down 18 points in that game. It was raining in Stillwater. That's such a weird game. It was the opposite of Texas, Mike. Texas had an electric crowd, great atmosphere, everything we've talked about, one of the great DKR moments. Stillwater was mostly empty when the game kicked off the day after the Black Friday game. Crowd was lame, raining. It was like, this is for the Big 12 championship game, y'all. And they fell behind. They just looked terrible in the first half and got down 18 points, and it looked for all the world like Texas. We ended up playing Oklahoma in this Big 12 champion game. They rallied back, and Ollie Gordon was the big key. He did get stronger as the game went on. They decided just let's hand him the ball. He scored 5 touchdowns. They won in overtime 40-34. But you said it, Mike. I mean, if your game plan is to run the ball against Texas, we talked last week on the multicast, Taj Brooks. Taj Brooks had 100 yards. He had some runs. We were like, wow, that guy's really good. But he had no impact on the game. Like the big picture, it didn't matter to the football game. And this one kind of feels like that. Ollie Gordon can get his 85, 90, 100 yards. But if you can corral him and control him, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I got it wrong. He was at Trinity. He was at ULE's Trinity. Quick little funny Ollie Gordon thing. On January 2nd, 2021, Quinn Ewers in Southland Carroll beat Trinity and Ollie Gordon in a playoff game in Arlington. That was during that game that Steve Sarkisian news broke.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we were all at that game watching Ewers, and then we were able to ask him afterwards about the coaching change and if he ended up signing with Ohio State anyway. But just kind of a weird backdrop to this one, and this one's going to be across. That was at the old Rangers Stadium. I think it's called Choctaw Stadium now. This one's going to be right across the street. And so kind of like a worlds colliding situation here. He's really, really good running back. I mean, he was great at Trinity. They're a running football team. They have a lot of big offensive linemen. That's what they're known for doing. I didn't know he was going to become the best running back in the country, but I definitely knew he was going to be a guy that a lot of the programs in the state were going to regret missing on. He just didn't have that 100-meter dash speed that a lot of these big programs are looking for in running
Well, that's
backs.
so common now because now they do, much like in the NFL, they do the high school combines, and if you don't run the 4.3 or the 4.4, you kind of get knocked down. But you're a football player.
He's the perfect Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State running back.
Yeah, and you kind of like that Sark and his staff came in on him late because they liked him. Like Jonathan Brooks, right? Jonathan Brooks for Texas was from Hallettsville. He's turned into one of the best backs in the country before he got hurt. All right, real quick on the Texas side, because if you're going to try to run against Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, that's a problem. Let's congratulate Tavondre Sweat here on the Eyes on Texas. He is one of the 3 finalists from the Outland Trophy, best interior lineman. There's an offensive lineman from Notre Dame, I think, is one of the other guys, and one of 3 now. He could win this award. And let's hear Sark. He was asked about these defensive tackles and how critical they've been. Texas allowing, in Big 12 conference play, Mike, 2.7 yards per carry to Texas running backs and to rushing teams. Incredible. One of the best rushing defenses this program's ever had, and they've had some pretty damn good ones back in the days, way back. But here's Sark on these DTs and how impactful they've been to this program.
Both have had fantastic seasons. I believe they're the best tandem in the country from what I can watch and the teams we've played against. And I mean, they work so well with one another. They're different styles of players. Sweat is got such athleticism for a big man and can impact the game in a variety of ways. He can rush the passer, he can defend the run and make critical plays on a lot of these 4th down stops and 3rd down stops. He gets his hands on the ball when he isn't able to get into the backfield, and he has got a lot of tips and batted balls. Where Murphy is such a penetrator, and he's such a bulldog. His effort is through the roof, and so I think they play really well off of one another. That quite frankly, I'm hopeful one of them is the Big 12 Defensive Player in the Year, and the other one is the Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year. And I think they're more than deserving of that. They have impacted our team in a way that, when you think about, we lead the nation on 3rd down defense, we lead the nation in red zone defense, and those are 2, really cool numbers to have when you talk about. Defensive football, that nobody's better than us on 3rd down. Nobody's better than us at stopping people in the red area. And sometimes total defense can get a little skewed because yards are just yards. But are you stopping people on 3rd down and getting them off the field? Are you stopping people from scoring touchdowns when they're in the red area? Those are big numbers. So I'm fired up for our defense.
All right, good stuff from Sark, without a doubt, with these defensive tackles. One more here in our 3rd quarter, presented by Brain Vault and the Brain Vault technology. Wanted to hear from Quinn Ewers on this, and then your thoughts on it, Mike. 1 year ago, I was in Stillwater for the game at Oklahoma State, and Quinn Ewers, I thought needed to be benched. Right, he needed to come out, and Hudson Card needed to come in. It was a windy day, real windy. That's a weird environment in Stillwater if you've never been there. The crowd's right on top of you, and he just struggled. He was off the whole game. They were talking about a thumb injury. And he didn't play well. Texas lost the game. They should have won. And I kept him out of playing in the Big 12 title game a year ago. But Sark was very clear. And, I can agree or disagree. Fans can agree or disagree. He chose the bigger picture that day. He chose, I need my quarterback to have a game like this. I need him to be here and take it and then see how he responds. And if we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. But I'm not pulling him. He's going to finish this game. And, kind of like tough love from a dad or something. And I know Texas fans were mad. I was, on Twitter tweeting about it, like, come on, man, Hudson Card, you win this game. And they didn't. And so now here's year to year, right? You've got Oklahoma State again. Let's hear Quinn talking about his progress as a quarterback from that game in Stillwater a year ago to this game. I think he had 25 incompletions in that game, threw some interceptions, missed a lot of open players. Here's Quinn, though, on his improvement from that game this year to what he has an opportunity to come back with and get some revenge on Saturday.
We came out pretty hot. I think we got up 31-17 at half, and then just weren't able to finish. I think they do a really good job on adjusting to certain things and just playing to their strengths. And we learned that we got to be able to finish because they're a good solid team, and they never give up.
All right, so there's Quinn. Sark earlier was asked about it and said, man, that's I needed him to have that, and it's benefited him now because now he makes a mistake. He doesn't get his dauber down. He sticks through it. And that's a philosophical difference, but that's what the coach's job is, by the way, to look big picture maybe more than individually, especially in year one, year two.
Yeah, I mean if you bench Ewers there, you risk setting him back emotionally, mentally, more than just that loss would have done. And I think Sark saw it as we can win big the next year if we take the lumps this year. And that takes some guts, especially at a place like Texas, right?
I know.
Where, like, you just went 5-7. You're going to be barely over 500 after your first 2 years on campus. You'd think you would want to win every single game. And he did obviously want to win that football game. But for him to have the foresight, I think that's what it helps being a former quarterback, where you put yourself into that position and, let's ride this one out. If it costs us some short-term gains, well, there's bigger stuff we can do with this kid if we just trust him and back him. And some of it's the mentality, too. Like, he probably knows Quinn pretty well, and if it's a guy who can handle getting benched or not handle getting benched. I think Quinn may be more of the latter.
And he's been better this year. He has a chance to lead the Longhorns to a Big 12 championship and get a 12-1 season. Brain Vault is much more than a mouthpiece. They bring you our third quarter and have been a partner all the way through here on our Eyes on Texas multicast, all the way to the championship game. It's more than a mouthpiece. It's an orthotic, proven way for young athletes and older athletes who play collision sports to play hard but play safe by minimizing the risk of concussions. And Brain Vault is backed by science. It's been tested over and over again, research-based, but also used on the field. We've told you that Dr. Greg Eckert, who's my dentist of my pearly white smile, we'll tell you about him in the fourth quarter. He and his partner, Drew Pittman, have come up with this orthotic, and Drew Pittman is an agent in the National Football League. More than 100 of his players have been wearing the Brain Vault technology for more than 8 years now, and not one concussion reported. And that's so on-the-field evidence and then backed by science and research to reduce the risk of concussions. I know you're saying, well, how does that work? How does that happen? Well, Brain Vault, I'll tell you the specifics. It optimally aligns the lower jaw in a position that strengthens your neck muscles and minimizes concussive forces, like a shock absorber in your mouth when that point of contact comes and the collision happens. I don't understand it more than you do, but you can go read about it at brainvault.com. Go to the website. There's right at the top page. They got a football player there, and then it says, what is Brain Vault? Click on that. They have all your questions answered. All the research is there. And then right next to that tab, you can schedule a group fitting or an individual fitting for your young athletes. Since it's been used in the last almost decade in the National Football League, they now have a retail version for teams and in collision sports, individuals in collision sports, such as football or soccer, lacrosse, rugby, cheerleading. The entire Texas cheerleading squad is fitted for and wearing the Brain Vault technology. You'd be surprised to know that concussions are rampant and very prevalent in the sport of cheerleading, any collision sport. Also, the Texas lacrosse team is wearing the Brain Vault technology as well. High schools across Central Texas and more across the Lone Star State are getting involved, and you should too. Schedule your fitting now, brainvault.com. That's brainvault.com, the revolutionary and patented mouthguard, proven to help reduce the risk of concussions, bringing you the third quarter. All right, Mike, that's I think we both like Texas quite a bit here in this game. Are you with me that I feel like, as I look at these championship games, and we'll dive into our fourth quarter, brought to you by Dr. Greg Eckert, my dentist, and helping restore my teeth. But our final four big questions, we like Texas. I view this game like the Michigan-Iowa game. When I think about it, I think the Georgia-Alabama game is going to be a hell of a game. I think Florida State, Louisville, all Longhorn fans will be glued to that to see. Washington, Oregon is going to be a hell of a game. I look at Michigan and Iowa, and I look at Texas Oak State, and I see a mismatch. And maybe that's me finally believing in this Texas team, that they're really a good team. And Oklahoma State has some flaws that Texas can take advantage of. And coming off of the three-phase performance they had last Friday, that the only team that can beat Texas on Saturday is Texas. The only team that can beat Michigan on Saturday is Michigan. If they show up, handle their business, Iowa can't play with Texas, Oklahoma State can't play with Texas. Or Michigan and Texas.
Yeah, it's for the same reason, right? Like, Iowa's a big physical bully football team, and you're not doing that to Michigan. Like, they're the better version of that. And Mike Gundy is 7-3 in his last 10 over against Texas because he could take most of those teams out back and beat the crap out of them.
Yes.
Just wear them down, like do Mike Gundy stuff where he's just going to build a tougher team. You're not the tougher team anymore. And if it's even, like even if Texas isn't tougher than Oklahoma State, if it's even now, the talent rises to the top, the same reason it does at Michigan. And so that's why I don't see this one as close. If Texas was just the skill position team that needed to finesse their way to a win, I would be worried about this game. But I don't worry anymore about Texas and quicksand. Like, they are that team. Like, they are a bunch of big dudes that are not going to get pushed around.
Yeah. And they know this is the end of the mission. This is mission accomplished if they finish this deal. And they do match up really, really well.
And it's the only team they haven't beaten that beat them last year.
Yeah, that's
right?
the final.
I mean,
it's the final receipt.
Right. It's that's kind of been the embrace the hate revenge tour kind of exit thing. And if they can walk out of here with Oklahoma State, they have a win streak against every single team in the Big 12 on their way out. I mean, that's pretty important. Except for Oklahoma, which they'll get their shot at.
Yeah, they play them every year.
Yeah.
All-time bragging rights.
Right.
Because you may never play them again. But
And
we
that
got
was
the
important. They wanted the Baylor win. They wanted the TCU. They did not want to happen to them what Oklahoma State did to Oklahoma.
No, that's right. That's exactly right. And what Texas did to A&M, and now they're going to revisit A&M. A&M's had to live with that loss for 12 years, and they get their next chance next November, which is fitting. And Mike Gundy's been a thorn in the side. He's been, for me, as a sports radio guy, he's been annoying to cover, but he's been a pleasure to cover. He's just, I love Mike Gundy, even though I hate Mike Gundy. Right? It's one of those. He's good for the sport because no one else. He doesn't think like anybody else. He's an outside. He's kind of the Stillwater version of Mike Leach. It's just, I'm going to do it my way. If you don't like it, sorry, I'm not conforming to what you want me to be, and I like that. And I'd like to see Texas put a loss on him on the way out. And I don't think he has the horses to beat Texas in this football game. I really don't. The Texas line, it's 14 points, 14.5. The over-under is 55. I mean, I think that's about right? 35-20, 34-21, right on that line. I mean, I think that could be the score, 37-21, something right there. Because I don't know if Texas hadn't gotten to 40 points much this year at all until last week. So they're going to hover around the mid-30s into the 40s, and I don't think Oklahoma State can score more than 24 points in this game.
Yeah, this seems like a 34-14 game to
Yeah.
me, And if you're a betting the thing you're worried about here is a backdoor cover.
Sure.
Like that's going to be the I honestly may lean under. Like I think Oklahoma State's offense is going to look like Tech's offense last week. It's just I don't know if Texas can score on Oklahoma State the way that they did against Tech. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a 27-7 ugly game type.
Yeah, that would be – well, and I also say this, for Texas Tech and having maybe their best special teams game in the last 20 years, maybe ever, Texas Tech special teams with a strength coming into the game. That was one of the things – that's one of the reasons they had won 6 games. Was their kick coverage, their kick return, their punt return. Maybe they've done a lot in the special teams. Texas dominated them. So if that's going to be the case, then you got no chance against Texas. I like the Longhorns by over the number, by the way. I think it's 14-17. So that would be my thought and my pick. As for the Longhorns on the recruiting trail, before we get to the coaching carousel and the transfer portal, good news today potentially for the Longhorns. They're recruiting a 5-star safety from McKinney named Xavier Filsame, big-time player. Big-time 5-star. My buddy Rod Babers, who I do the show with on the radio in the mornings, has watched a lot of film on Xavier. He says he looks like Derek Williams. He's a big safety, but he has corner coverage skills. Great hips, great explosiveness, long arms. He's committed to Florida.
And he will hit you.
Xavier Filsame. He is committed to Florida. And here's the thing. He's got one parent that lives in the Metroplex and another parent that lives in Orlando. So he's kind of divides time. But so he's committed to Florida. But as of recording day today, this Tuesday, the coach who had been recruiting him for 2 years at Florida got fired by Billy Napier. He's out. Xavier had a tweet about, what the heck kind of thing, and this happens to young athletes. The guy that you have a relationship with now gets a pink slip, and your decision, and by all accounts, he was on Texas campus last Friday, taking a visit, and so we'll see. That's a name to watch, Xavier Filsame. A safety, we've seen the Longhorns this year struggle at safety. That's a need position. Derek Williams looks like the future at one spot. Xavier Filsame, a name to watch. Also, 5-star corner Kobe Black out of Waco was supposed to announce on the 29th of November, which would be tomorrow, but he's moved that back. He's got a scheduling conflict with the school or something. I don't know. You may know more about that, Mike, but he's a big-time player. The Longhorns, 5-star corner, 5-star safety, could push them to the top of the recruiting rankings.
Yeah, and Kobe Black's going to commit Dave Campbell's Texas football. We're gonna stream that one on Texan Live. I think it's going to be around December 11th is when he's gonna announce there. One of the better cover corners you will find. His older brother was a really good football player as well. I think he played at Oklahoma State. And so, that would be a big one for Texas because as we've seen this year, as you mentioned, secondary has kind of been the spot, right? And if you can keep populating those positions with what they've built at the wide receiver spot, you start getting back to those really fun practices back in the Mac Brown days when, Nathan Vasher's covering Roy Williams and stuff like that.
Well, look at last week. Manny Muhammad's a freshman. He's making an interception. Terrence Brooks is going to be, all caliber, all Big 12 kind of player, maybe bigger at the other corner. Ryan Watts moves on, but you've got some depth at corner that you feel like you're building. Obviously, Kobe Black, Xavier Filsame, Derek Williams. I mean, you're talking about some real athletes in the back end to go with what you're doing. Because, look, next year, you're replacing Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy and maybe Alfred Collins. I mean, you're going to have to be able to cover a little bit better. You're not going to have those. We have a good defensive line, but you won't have those guys. We're talking about the best in the last 20, 25 years at Texas. All right, also in our Final Four, transfer portal opens Monday. That's your calendar, folks, on Eyes on Texas Multicast. You've got game Saturday, college football playoff rankings out, as we've talked about tonight and in this episode, on Sunday morning before the NFL starts, and then Monday, portal opens. Madness, Mike. Madness. Madness, I tell you.
It's already started. Like 2 of North Texas's best offensive players announced that they were jumping in today. Miles Price from Tech announced that they were. So, December 4th is the official day when you can start, really looking at that, but it's already happening. I always get asked what I do in the offseason, but there isn't an offseason because of things like the transfer.
Oh, it's year-round. Well, and it's interesting. I mean, look, Sark has been clear, and we'll hear him talking about their plan for the transfer portal, but look, I mean, there's a real scenario. If the Longhorns make the Final Four, Florida State loses, Texas is in, there's going to be guys leaving who aren't going to be a part of the Final Four. I mean, Malik Murphy could be one of them. There's talk Ohio State is flirting around with Malik Murphy and other programs. And you've got the team and this culture, but you also have an individual who knows that Arch Manning's the future and Quinn Ewers is coming back, and he can't wait till December or early January. There's going to be a spot, and there's going to be quarterbacks available. That's the crazy time we're talking about, where a player the caliber of Malik Murphy, maybe one of the running backs here that we're talking about. The Longhorns, Jonathan Brooks will be back next year. C.J. Baxter's a 5-star. They're bringing in the 5-star kid from Arizona as a recruit. They got another kid from IMG Academy. So if you're one of these running backs, Jaden Blue was over 100 yards. I'm not telling you anybody's going to jump in the portal, but those are going to be young guys looking at that going, man, I want to play. I want to. And if somebody calls them and say, "Man, we got a starting spot for you," this is what we're talking about. This is the craziness. A program and a culture that's as good as Texas right now could lose some good players just because of the natural attrition of how this thing works.
That's a great point I haven't really thought about. I'm trying to think back on TCU last year and if that happened at all, and I don't remember many of the players jumping into the portal until the day after the national
championship. And maybe they'll wait.
I mean,
maybe that's kind of a deal that they've got.
And then you can kind of enroll within the first couple of weeks of when it's starting there and stuff. So it gets a little...
There's a 45-day window, Mike.
Because you're right. That can, all of a sudden, who do you practice with if you start losing too many guys? That's a scenario that would be great. The other part of that, too, is maybe this isn't as true for Texas because they're not as transfer portal dependent because of how well they recruit. I remember talking to Sonny and them at TCU last year. They had to leave coaches back home during the national championship lead up in Los Angeles because they were hosting guys.
Yeah.
Right? You're always hosting these recruits as well. Same with the Fiesta Bowl. He was flying back from Phoenix to host some transfer portal guys and then back for Fiesta Bowl stuff. So the calendar is just insane, what these guys have to juggle behind these. I understand why the early signing period was made to be the early signing period, but it's put a strain on the calendar and on December and what everybody's juggling at the same time with bowls. It is wild what's happening with college football.
Think about what Mike just said, folks. The portal opens December 4th. December 20th is the early signing window for high school players.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about a 2.5 week period of madness. You're trying to solidify your 2024 class. You're trying to re-recruit your own locker room, potentially add pieces for next year while you're preparing for potentially a semifinal game in the national title. And if the Longhorns aren't in the Final Four, people have asked a lot, they're likely headed to the Cotton Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl as outside the power. They'd still be the 1 seed out of the Big 12, just not in the Final Four. They'd end up playing a really good team in the Cotton Bowl up in Arlington, and they could play back-to-back games at AT&T Stadium if that plays out. And if they do make the semifinal, folks, it'll be either in the Sugar Bowl or in Pasadena, in the Rose Bowl this year, New Orleans or Pasadena. So cross your fingers on that, as Mike just did. Yeah. All right, there's your transfer portal. That's Monday. Keep an eye on that. That's going to blow up like crazy. Saw something today that a player you know very well, the Washington State quarterback Cam Ward.
That's my guy.
He's going to be in demand. Apparently there's a bunch of big-time schools in the SEC coming after him because Washington State does not have a conference as of next year, and he's a big-time player.
Yeah, played option quarterback in high school. Just absolutely insane.
Like East Texas somewhere?
Yeah, Cleveland. That's how he ended up at Incarnate Word, is he never passed the ball in high school. Nobody knew that he could throw. And then it was all that COVID stuff, so he didn't really get to a lot of camps to kind of prove that he could throw the ball. Incarnate Word, Eric Morris, the North Texas coach, is kind of who discovered and polished him and sent him. Like, he followed. Eric Morris went from Incarnate Word to OC at Washington State, and that's why Cam Ward followed him. But I'd imagine he has a choice, pick of the litter there. He is going to be so, like, right now, there's probably nothing outside of being a first-round draft pick. There's probably nothing more lucrative in college football than being a grad transfer quarterback with real experience and winning success.
Well, I mean, look at Michael Penix.
Yeah.
Look at Bo Nix.
But you could probably make second-round draft pick money is what I'm saying.
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, we talk about the older quarterbacks
Right.
who have moved. Well, they're now leading teams into I mean, Quinn Ewers transferred, but he was younger. But Bo Nix was a 2-3 year starter at Auburn. Michael Penix was a 2-year starter at Indiana. Cam, these guys are moving, and they're 22, 23 years old, and they're big time, and they're making some money, and their teams are going to play for national championships, and that's why they're valuable. And Cam Ward could be that. That's a great story from Mike on the option quarterback from Cleveland, Texas. Now going to be one of the more in-demand players in the portal. All right, real quick on the coaching carousel. You had a busy week. Started on Sunday with the firing of Jimbo Fisher week before, but then the hiring of Mark Stoops, and then the non-hiring of Mark Stoops, and then the hiring of Mike Elko, and the press conference at Aggie Land. Take us through that whole scenario, and what a mess. But at the end, they probably got a good coach.
I went to bed 3 different times Saturday. I thought I was done with my day after the Mark Stoops sort of news happened. Then went to bed, turned everything off, and then got word that the Mark Stoops thing wasn't happening. So I had to get back up and do all the whole thing again, and then finally was able. Third time was the charm there. Depending on who you believe, Mark Stoops was like on his way to College Station when all this stuff went
or even
down.
landed and had to go back.
It was a pretty wild situation. But yeah, it's been crazy. I think the most surprising news of my day on Sunday was that Dave Aranda was staying at Baylor. I thought that thing was done and dusted. I mean, they lost their last 5. It just the portal hasn't been good to them. Their roster isn't very great. And so when I kind of got the news that they were keeping Aranda and he was going to go back to being the kind of the play calling LSU DC in a dark room Dave Aranda, it was surprising to me. But the A&M buyout has warped our minds, I think, to where we're like, $76 million. What's $20 million, right? It's like why Costco has the big ticket prices when you first walk in. So you see the TV for $2,000, and that way when you see the thing for $80 later, you're not surprised by it. $20 million is still a lot of money for a private Christian university. I think if the buyout was zero, Aranda would have been gone, but him coming back and then Holgerson being fired, it was a crazy Sunday. I'm still kind of coming down from it.
Yeah, Holgerson out at Houston, Elko is in, and Aranda staying, but as you say, they want him to, almost like you've told us a couple times now on the radio show, and I read your story, they want an offensive coordinator with head coaching experience, almost like they want a co-head coach.
Yes.
So that Aranda can focus on defense. They're going to be more, spend more money in the NIL space and be a part of that like they haven't before. But yeah, almost like they're just hanging on to Dave Aranda because they don't want to buy him out and bring him in some help. He did win a Big 12 championship 2 years ago, so there is that. But the talent level has drained dramatically, and they got to get that back. On Mike Elko, I know it was a weird, crazy, Ross Bjork, what a mess, Mark Stoops. But here's Ross Bjork, and let's be clear, you'll hear of the athletic director at A&M, what they were looking for. They wanted a defensive-minded head coach who could recruit and develop. Here's Ross Bjork on why Mike Elko was the call at Texas A&M, who the Longhorns will now play next November 30th in College Station.
It's really those characteristics that I laid out on the stage earlier. Defensive-minded head coach, right? Recruiting elite talent, having that mindset coming from the head coach position. I mean, just look in our league. Who are the 2 best programs right now? Who are they led by, right? And so looking at that formula, understanding that we can recruit at the highest level, understanding that Coach Elko has been a part of top 5, top 10 recruiting classes here at A&M. And then honestly, he's got a plan. And you can see by his demeanor, he's been equipped for this for a long time. So I remember calling the Duke athletic director 2 years ago next week, and she wanted to know, is he ready? And I said, he's been ready. This is if he's your guy, this is a no-brainer. hire. And so the same analysis as we went through our process unfolded here.
All right, so Elko recruited a lot of those players. Mike, you were at the news conference. What are your impressions of Elko to A&M?
I just thought it was funny when Ross started going through those things, like great defense, a lot of talent, a quarterback that can be, and it's like, yeah, like long legs, smart, laughs at my jokes, like of course that's what it takes to win national championships. I like the Mike Elko hire. I mean, they were 34-14 when he was there as a DC. They were 12-12 when he left. I think a lot of the organizational leadership and just kind of structure was a Mike Elko product. Jimbo Fisher is a lot like what we just talked about Dave Aranda with defense. Like Jimbo Fisher lives on the offensive side of the complex. He wasn't hanging out on defense, right? Like he wasn't telling Durkin what to do. He wasn't sitting in defensive meetings. So Elko's been a pseudo head coach at A&M, and he walks in there, like you said, knowing the roster, knowing the community, knowing the power brokers to be and who his bosses are and what the structure is behind the scenes at A&M. And that makes this almost like a year-half job where it's not year zero where you walk in and everything's got to change. And that was important for A&M because 2024 is big for them. They had a 12-year head start on Texas. And they're about to play the Longhorns, and they're about to host them, and they don't want to get embarrassed. And that's one of the reasons that they paid $76 million for Jimbo to go away. I think Elko was the smart hire that they made look so hard to do that now it looks like a bad hire.
Yeah.
If they had just hired him last week, like right off the bat, and that was just the name, we would all be like, man, that was a good hire. Like, he's a hell of a football coach, right? But they made it, and this is what athletic directors do, they made it look so messy that it's hard to look at it in a vacuum and go like, it's a good ball coach. But I don't believe in the splash hire thing. I don't understand why everybody needs that. I think it's an ego thing where it's like, look what coach we stole. Texas A&M needs to get back to being the blue-collar, defensive, hard-nosed team, and I think Elko's going to do that.
Yeah, I was on Jeff Traylor's bandwagon for that, but Mike Elko checks a lot of those same boxes. There's an R.C. Slocum vibe to that. He can do that sway thing, too. I don't know how to do that, but he already knows how to do that weird sway press conference thing that was
I was
weird.
there. I was there. It is it's a place, man. It's a different place. I didn't go to a lot of churches, but it feels like sometimes when you would sleep over at your friend's house and then you go to their church and you were like, whoa. This is different. This is different than what I'm used to. That's what going to an A&M function is.
And Mike Elko is right there. I mean, but Mark Stoops might have went, what the hell is going on here? I'm not doing that. But Mike Elko is right there swaying along with everybody in suits, and then they're going to drive their Escalades back to Katy or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's the way that goes.
Right.
Let's be weird.
Watch Yellowstone.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Mike Elko, like the hire. I understand what they're doing, and his success will be predicated on the offensive coordinator he hired. He's got to hire a really good OC because he's going to run a good defense. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But Texas A&M has their coach. Longhorns will begin playing them. Also, real quick, Mike, who do you think is the new head coach at Houston? I saw Cliff Kingsbury report today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Willie Fritz or Jeff Traylor with a hint of Gary Patterson in there. But I think if I had to place my money, it would be Fritz or Traylor.
Willie Fritz from Tulane, who's won the Cotton Bowl last year, beat USC. Got another team that could be headed to a New Year's Six Bowl this year. Does a real good job. You know who really likes Willie Fritz is my good friend David Pierce, the Texas Longhorn baseball coach. They were at Sam Houston together.
Yeah. Fritz has won at the JUCO level, at the Division II level, at the FCS level, and at the FBS level.
David Pierce was the one always telling me, man, keep an eye on this Willie Fritz. Yeah. He's a really good coach, and he may end up getting that Houston job. Which I
just believe in like ball coaches.
I agree with you.
Like I don't need a dude that wins press conferences and all that kind of stuff. Like give me a dude who can like go coach a football team. Willie Fritz is that guy.
Agreed. Great name too, Willie Fritz.
Yeah,
Willie Fritz.
Good coach name.
For sure. All right, Mike, good stuff. We both like Texas in the Big 12 championship game. If you're heading up there, make sure you come find us. I know at the Horn, we're going to be hanging out at a place called Jay Gilligan's on Saturday morning if you want to shuttle. Jay Gilligan's is right there in downtown old school Arlington between UTA, the UT Arlington campus, and the stadium. Come on out there. I'll be broadcasting live from 8 in the morning until the game. And they shuttle. You can park there, have some breakfast, have a drink, and then shuttle over. And I know for the Cowboys game on Thanksgiving, they shuttled 3,000 people to and from. So they got plenty of space, and come over there. Jay Gilligan's in Arlington. We'll also be up in Dallas on Friday afternoon.
I think they have famous nachos.
They do, yeah. They have pretty world-famous nachos, I've been told. But more importantly, you can have some breakfast and not have to pay Jerry Jones to park.
It's all up here.
All up here. Famous nachos. Mike, but tell them about Dave Campbell's Texas football. It's high school football playoffs. There's all this coaching stories going on. If people haven't gotten signed up at Dave Campbell's, what's going on over there?
Yeah, texasfootball.com/subscribe. All the streaming stuff, Texan Live. We got a magazine coming out. Micah Hudson's going to be on the cover. Wrote a 2,000-word feature story on him, so that'll be cool. That's for subscribers only. But honestly, I'd love to toot my own horn here, but the reason to subscribe right now is the high school football stuff. State championships start on the 13th. We will be there for all 12 of those football games. I will live inside of AT&T Stadium for 4 straight days. Like, you wouldn't think you could get sick of that place because it's football heaven. Like, that place is a cathedral for football.
Right.
You do. It feels like a prison by the time the 6A games are done. But it's going to be locked and loaded. We'll have more coverage there than you could ever want of high school football. So please subscribe. We're growing. It's been a lot of fun.
TexasFootball.com. And we here on the Eyes on Texas multicast are a product of that Republic of Football and Dave Campbell's Texas Football Podcast Network. We are powered by Grande Equipment. Thank you to our digital producer, Nolan Hogan, for all the great work. Our executive producer, Griffin Hogan, we're putting it together, editing everything, making it look great. Thanks again to our founding partners, Carlos Carrion, the Texas Mortgage Guy, online at thetexasmortgage.com, Hayes City Store in Driftwood, Texas, and Taste on Main in downtown Buda, One Source Gas of Central Texas, Dr. Greg Eckert, my dentist, and his Brain Vault technology, the mouthpiece. And, of course, we're powered by a presenting sponsor at Grande Equipment, locally owned, independent, but worldwide equipment company serving heavy equipment needs here in Texas and all over the world since 2004. Find them at grandeequipment.com. The multicast keeps you on top of all things Texas football. Is the Eyes on Texas multicast, available to watch weekly on the Dave Campbell's and the Horn Austin YouTube pages and channels, available for download through iTunes and Spotify and wherever you find your favorite podcast. Good luck to the Longhorns in the Big 12 championship game. Hook 'em.